Hello, my name is Kelly Eddington. I'm a professional watercolor artist with over 150,000 subscribers to my instructional YouTube channel, Kelly Eddington Watercolors. Today I'll show you how to paint phlox flowers and leaves. This is featured in my Learn to Paint Watercolor Flowers art instruction pad, part of the new learning series from Strathmore. This is a complex painting, so if the thought of drawing this intimidates you, take advantage of the template available at strathmorelearning.com/watercolorflowers and then dab masking fluid on some of the white highlights in this picture. There aren't many. The petals are purple, but you can see pink and blue undertones. I'm painting those first before adding purple. Pink and blue will combine to create purple as well. Some of the petals here are darker and more intense as they get closer to the ground. As usual, skip around the painting and give your petals time to dry before painting their neighbors. Here's one of those darker petals. I'm using the same colors but with less water this time. Those first petals are dry now, so I can paint some more. Depending on the humidity where you're painting, this can take a long time or no time at all. I live in a place that can be pretty humid, so sometimes the drying time for a really wet petal can be as long as a half hour. One time though, I painted outdoors in southeast Utah, and it was so dry that the water in my paint evaporated almost as soon as it hit the paper, and I had to change the way I worked when I was out there. So I've painted most of the rest of the petals, and many are darker than the ones on the main flower. These are such pretty little flowers. You can also paint that cute little star in the center of the main phlox blossom. Round 2 is dry, and I can finally take care of that last petal. And there we go. I'm removing a few bits of masking fluid, and using a damp brush, I am softening the edges it created. Now I'll spend some time creating shadows and other dark areas on the petals. I'm using a purple and blue combination and a small round brush. See how glazing a few simple lines over that first wet into wet layer can create a convincing texture? I've enhanced some of those big petals, and I'm going to do the same thing with the overlapped flowers below it. There are a number of phlox varieties, and these were part of some ground cover under a tree. I brushed some of those leaves aside and took a reference photo from almost directly overhead. I just painted some of that ground cover peeking through a few petals with dark green and purple. Now let's loosen up a bit and mix some of my favorite spring green. I'm switching to a bigger brush, a number 7 round, to establish where those leaves are. Some of the remaining spaces aren't green, so look before you paint here. So that's a pretty big change. This seems way too light, of course, but it's only the first of several layers. I'm also adding some tan and olive shapes. These are dried leaves. You can make olive by mixing green and tan. Next, I'm going to paint a greener version of spring green over the leaves. Sometimes when I work extensively with a single color, like that first spring green layer, by the time I'm finished with it, the parts where I began are already dry, so I don't always need to wait between layers. And what I'm doing here is called negative painting. This just means that I'm painting around places that, in this case, I want to appear as highlights. I'm using Hooker's green along with some of the leftover spring green. Now I'm switching gears, and with my small round brush and the darkest color I can mix, I'm filling in places I know are super dark. Many watercolor artists will wait until the very end to add dark paint, but with a complicated painting like this one, I feel like I need to see where those are before I work on the midtones. But my approach isn't for everyone, and if you feel like you want to wait before you go dark, that's totally fine. My brain just likes the security of knowing where things are early on in a painting. I'm just extra careful not to overlap the yellow-green leaves and stems I've already painted. Some of these dark areas are greener and some are more brown, and now that they're mostly finished, I feel a lot more comfortable. Now I'm going to go to town on these leaves with some medium dark greens. This painting is complicated with lots of little shapes. Be patient and take breaks. Sometimes when I'm painting, I have to set an hourly alarm to get up and stretch. It's easy to lose yourself in a painting like this one. Phlox reminds me of violets, purple flowers that hide beneath ground cover, and they're both such a pleasure to paint. The right side is getting more and more complicated. In some places I can count 3 and even 4 layers. The glare is making them seem a little shiny, but you'll see the dark parts in a minute. I don't know why I'm working clockwise on this painting, but I am, and I'll add similar dark areas to the leaves and stems down there. As usual, feel free to simplify some of this stuff if you like. If you look at my reference photo for this, you'll see that there's a blurry stem on the right side that I just chose to ignore. This is the kind of painting I could see myself working on for a week and getting really obsessed over every little thing, but the constraints of painting for a video have forced me to loosen up a bit, and that's not a bad thing. These 2 big leaves on the left side are closer to the viewer, so I will take some time with those. I've added several layers of green to both, and I'm continuing to build up the darks. We're at the point where my hand's flying around the painting and finding little things to fix. It seems like I'm going 100 miles per hour here, but I'm not. Work slowly and carefully, and your patience will be rewarded. When you're outdoors, take time to appreciate quiet little things like these flowers. They're just waiting for you to paint them. Hope you enjoyed learning how to paint phlox, flowers, and leaves. Check out the other video tutorials from my Learn to Paint Watercolor Flowers pad to learn even more watercolor painting techniques. And you can go to strathmorelearning.com to discover other Strathmore Learning Series products that I think you'll enjoy. Thanks for watching.